Good evening. It's Tuesday, July 19th, I believe. I'm going to get a little technical here, but only a little technical. I should say, before I get technical, I am not a ceramic engineer, nor have I taken classes in ceramic engineering, so parts of this are going to be very untechnical. Years ago, I taught a class at the Art Center about glazing, and I think my students were probably fundamentally disappointed because even though I taught them different ways of applying it and some basic principles and so forth, I think what they were hoping for was some sort of magical way to snap your fingers and make luscious pots just because of the glaze, and it's not really how glazes work. So, but to begin with, glazes are not like paint. And it can be a real problem if you start your ceramics education in a situation where you're using glazes that do seem to be like paint, in the sense that you're brushing them onto the bisque pot, and the company has worked very hard to make them look just the same off your brush as after the firing. So, you know, the blue glaze looks blue and so forth. And so you can predict based on that sort of feedback. Well, that sort of feedback isn't really what's going on at a chemical level. The bits that are blue at room temperature are probably going to burn away and are just pigments in there to help you. Actual glazes that you've mixed up in 10,000 gram batches are often beige no matter what color they turn out in the long run. So it can be very difficult to say, you know, is this beige green or is this beige red when it comes out of the kiln. You also have situations where potentially that glaze doesn't necessarily turn out the way it's supposed to because the kiln was misfired. So here, for example, I've got a copper red, Pete Pinnell's recipe, Pete Red. At the rim there, the atmosphere was significantly different enough that it didn't stay red. Okay, it went to what we jokingly refer to as not red. It's still, you know, perfectly useful, perfectly luscious, but the super duper red part was here, less so here. What I ended up telling the class, and it's still true, is that there are basically two categories, broad categories of glazes, and I don't mean glossy and semi-matte and so forth. What I mean is there are glazes, for instance this honey celadon, that will show off, okay, see there's the detail in that stamp, every little line you made. They're like a colored window glass. Okay, so that's pretty luscious. Showing off the little marks up here, I'm less of a fan of that. And if you've got marks that you're not a fan of, maybe instead what you use is a glaze like the red that will cover it up. So you have glazes that reveal your texture, and you have glazes that cover it up, obliterate it. And in this case, you could actually have two different ones on the same pot. So the Wright's green is doing a good job of revealing the texture of that stamp, but the Pete's red is doing a good job of covering up. Not that there was anything going on that needed covering up. And in this case, okay, so this is all this purple and blue and so forth. This is just the red over the green in a reduction environment. And here, you know, I'm potentially covering up marks, but I don't care. What I've got is the structure of a cup and the mystery of these two lines, that's just the raw clay, and the gorgeous swirling of glazes mixing and doing what they're doing, unlike paint. So, I know, clear as mud. You could do semesters on glaze. I've only got a few minutes. Have a good night.